I did a final wipe. This back here came out just about perfect. I did a final wipe over this area right here. Had a little spot right here that was a little bit low after the second fill. And this is basically just a skim coat. You can already see it's taking shape. This stuff's so hard to block out with 180. You can block it with 80, but then you got to get the 180 or get the 80 out into 180 or finer. So since it's so hard to block with 180, I don't want to do anything with 80 here because I'm going to get 80 grit scratches in the fiberglass that I don't want to have to try to get out. So I'm going to just DA sand this with the 180 and get it really close and seal it off with a coat of epoxy primer, and then add just regular glaze on top of that. I think I can put glaze on top of this since it's epoxy, but just to be safe, I'm going to just seal it off with a coat of epoxy primer, and then I'll just fill on top of that just like I would on any other car. All right, it's ready and masked off for epoxy. I'm going to get a little bit of adhesion promoter, put over the blue area, which will be most of all of it. And then I'll put 2 coats of epoxy. That'll give me a little more build than normal, just to be less likely to cut through it whenever I block out the body filler that'll go on top of the epoxy primer. All right, that's good on the first coat. This stuff likes to run. Let that dry for about 20-30 minutes and come back and put another coat on it. That'll be good. Okay, quick update. Got the quarter panel finished. I just need to sand this edge right here, get the door gap right. Don't have much to go there. Just haven't done anything at all to it. Just need to get it sanded down on that edge. And then I'm gonna add a little bit of glaze in this area. There's a little bit of a low spot right in there, but that'll also give me something else to block the whole thing out. So I've got the deck lid off just to get out of my way because I want to be able to sand in here and prime this whole area because this paint is flaking in here, so I need to get all that out and prime this whole thing as in one shot. I've marked the center of this hole where the antenna comes through. I just kind of eyeballed where the rest of the hole was. I've only got half of it here. And I've got this dished out with a grinder, so I've kind of knifed it down into the hole. I'm going to add long strand fiberglass filler. This Evercoat long strand. This is purple. Basically the same thing as what they call Fibertech. But I'm going to just put some tape on the back side just to stop it and just fill this in. Then I'll use these use these lines here to mark the hole again for drilling it after I get the long strand in there. So that'll be full of this stuff. And then I'll finish it out with body filler and everything, and then I'll drill it. And those lines will give me the center to drill once I'm done filling it. This side just needs blocking out basically, so once this is blocked, I'll be able to just tape the whole car off and just spray the whole back side here with 3, maybe 4 coats of high build primer. I shouldn't need any epoxy here. I don't have any metal. So I'll get this filled, and while that's setting up, I'll come back and I'll put some glaze on this. Or I may even wait and put glaze there when I finish that area there out, because it'll need some body filler over the top of that fiberglass. But that should be it. Then I've got a hand sand down inside these pockets and be ready to prime. All right, we're ready to go. Just got it masked off. Just gonna do the whole rear half in one shot. Got the hole drilled for the antenna. New quarter panel. Go ahead and wipe this area just to smooth it out. That under there is fairly smooth. It's not near as visible as this, so if I can get anything out down there in the primer. But that up there needed some glaze. I still need to work the jams, but I'm just going to mask off the quarters. When I get in there to strip the paint out of there, I just want to make sure I get the primer on the car as soon as possible so it can be curing the whole time I'm working on everything else. Okay, I'm going to start down there in the front. bring my wet edge up, and then bring one up here, and then carry that whole wet edge all the way across and go down the other side. Does about a medium wet coat. I don't want to put it on too heavy. The trap solvent's in the body filler, so I'm gonna let that dry about 15 minutes. Go to the next one and probably put 3, maybe 4 coats. All right, I finally got around to getting to this spot right here. What I've got is about a 6 or 7 inch metal ruler, just clamped in. I've got it flush with this. Right here is not flush because this wheel lip is angled and the ruler's straight, but right in this area, this is where the lip, about where the lip would end up being on the inside, this width right here. So I've got it about flush in here. This is going to give me the arc I need. I decided to do this instead of putting a patch panel in, because if I do a patch panel, I need to put a backer behind here and then glue it to that backer. And if I'm going to have to fill the outside with Fibertech anyway, I might as well just fill the whole thing in at one time, and I can go ahead and get the arc like this, and I don't have to cut the arc in it. This should give me just about the exact arc I need for the wheel arch. I'm just going to take a piece of foil tape or something and cover this area right here. I'm going to fill from the back side with Fibertech, and that'll basically give me a flush surface out here to kind of dish all this back out and then build up from there, and make this body line back in it right here on this corner. But this will go ahead and give me kind of a foundation to start with. I'll fill it in back here. Once it's cured, I can pop this off. It shouldn't stick to this tape. Just unclamp this, pop this off, pull my tape off up here, and then start dishing it from the top and do a normal repair on it. So that's going to be next on that. And I've got one little place under here Well, there's a crack, I think, right under here, way under here. I think it's right there. Really need to fix that. It's not really visible, but I don't want it to get any worse. And this side is basically ready to block out and sand the rest of the top all the way around, and get this front end primed, and that'll be most of the car. That'll be primed at that point. Okay, the front end's ready to prime. Just got it masked off. I just taped off the doors. A little bit's going to get inside the jambs, but I'm going to have the doors back off to paint the jambs anyway. So whenever I do that, I'll get the primer off the door, and then I'll get the primer off the actual post when I go in there to repair that. So all that can just blow in there. I'm just trying to keep it off the door. Got to go all the way underneath there. Same thing on this side. When I paint this front end, I most likely will have the doors off. Paint the front and rear, maybe separately, but I'll paint the jamb with the rear end most likely. I may change my mind later, but I think the doors will be off when I do this, so I don't have to worry about getting paint in the jamb. I'll get you set up here in a second. All right, 2 more coats. All right, got a quick update for you on this. I pulled the door back off and just knocked the pins out of the hinges to get the outer half of the hinge out of the way. I worked this fiberglass cover off just with a heat gun and a pry bar. Pretty much destroyed it getting it off, but I was able to enlarge this rusted out hole here and make a little plug for it, or a patch, and just welded that in. Now I sandblasted everywhere around this hole where I had nice clean metal left to weld to. I still need to sandblast the rest of it. A lot of this will get pour 15 just because it's covered up, and if I sandblast it I'll have to epoxy it anyway, so I'm going to do pour 15 down in here. Since I can't get under here anyway, I'm just going to flood some pour 15 in, brush it all in here because all it's covered up anyway. But I'm going to sandblast this main area up here where it was rusted so that I can epoxy it and then get some body filler over it and smooth it all out. Now I could fill it before I epoxy it, but I'd rather have a coat of epoxy directly on it and then fill it and then prime over that. That way I've got epoxy directly on the metal. I'm gonna have to order one of these covers and replace that. And one of these plugs here, this plug right here was sort of disintegrated. It goes in this hole. I need to get one of those. But anyway, I've got that where I can work it later, but I need to be able to back the car out to sandblast and not get it all in the garage. So I'm waiting on the rain to clear up, but it's gonna be most of the week. So I moved on to the front bumper, got it clamped in place back in here. Just got it test fit. These things take a good bit of work to get these to fit the car. I've got it as close as I'm going to be able to get it. And it looks to me like the gap, it's not perfect, but I can shave a little bit off right in here, or I could even add material to this to fill it in, but I think it would be just fine to leave. I need a slight gap anyway so the paint won't start to peel when the parts rub together, since it will flex a little. Now along the top it will be in contact with the front, nothing I can do about that, but I've got pretty consistent gap over here. And what I'm doing now is I've got, this is a little bit high here, even with this flush all the way across. And I've got this ridge lined up here and down here, so this edge is just where it is. So I've got a round block, I've got it masked off where I won't scratch anything else. I'm just gonna shave this down like this until I get basically flush with the body, or with my tape that's on the body, and that'll be good across here. But it's only the last couple inches. There's a slight curve in it right here where it's concave right in here. I thought that was just a flaw in the mold, but it's actually curved to match the body. Whoever did this originally, well, on the replacement bumper that was on it, they just basically filled the whole thing and flattened it out. So I'm going to try to keep that curve, and you can see a little bit of it in there. So I'll try to save that, but the whole thing's going to have to be wiped. You can see how wavy it is. It's not too bad, but you're going to need to wipe all the way across the top. And I've got to bolt it to the car and do all the body work with it, bolted permanently to the car, because once you bolt it in and pinch the flanges together, it does things like this where it leaves a inward ridge in it. So it's all got to be done with it on the car. So what I've got to do is get it close now, get the brackets fit to it, or these studs, these will glue to the back of it. And I still have to drill the holes for these and then glue them in once I get it on the car, bolt it all together, and leave it there. And all the body work will have to be done with it on there. But it fits pretty well for being a fiberglass, aftermarket fiberglass replacement. You can see all the work I've got to do to get it flat, so I'll have to just coat the whole top with filler. I'm gonna go ahead and get this over here cut down right there and get it flush. The rest of it's probably fine. I got a little bit of an edge on this side, I believe. Not too much, but I do need to add a little bit right there. You can see how it just sits in. So I'm gonna add some to the outside right here. I'll go ahead and get my studs and all glued in. When I get it finally bolted on, I'll do all that where nothing can move. Okay, the bumper is ready to be put on the car. Done all the body work to the bottom that I wanted to do while it was still off. I'm going to sand, scuff all this and get it ready for primer before I put it on the car, so I can not have to do that with it on there. Get underneath the car to do it. I've got the headlights stripped down to the metal. I'll level these off with a layer of body filler. They're just cast, so they're not perfectly flat. So I flattened them out the best I could, and I'll get some epoxy on it now, and then probably 3 coats of high build urethane just to be able to block it out flat. And I'll put these back in the car while the bumper's still off. That'll give me plenty of access under here to bolt them back in. I'd prefer to paint the headlights with them off the car, but I don't want to damage those while I put them back in. So I'm just going to go ahead and put them back in the car and paint it with the front end. Okay, got the front bumper bolted in where it's going to stay. Customer brought me this lower valance to replace the original. I've got it bolted in across the bottom, got everything installed that's going to be there. This piece is new, just like the original, and this is aftermarket. He just brought me that. It's got one shipping crack right there I'll have to fix. And then the wheel well, I'm going to have to take the wheel off and lift this up and clamp it to the body. And I'm going to have to drill from the inside through the new piece to give me something to bolt it to. There's one hole here, but there's really nothing to screw it to, and there was no hardware with this kit. But if I just bolt it down to the body in about 3 places here, I really won't need that, and I might just put a clip through it just to plug the hole. And I'll most likely paint the back side of this thing black or something just to hide the fiberglass. I don't really want to paint it red because it's so rough. I may paint it flat black. I think red would just look bad. But everything is pretty much installed the way it's going to be. I just need to do that final drill on each end for this new valance panel. And I'll take it back off once I've got it completely installed. Know it's going to fit, because it'll have to go on after the car's painted. Same with the piece underneath. That new white piece, I'll just bolt that piece back in. I'll paint them separately. But the bumper's got to stay on the car because you can see the waves that are in it. And especially up here at these areas where I bolted it into the body, it kind of warps it a little bit. So I'm going to have to do the final body work with it on the car here. I went ahead and sprayed some red around these edges so I can actually pop the headlights up, get some red around those if I need to, but I didn't want to block myself from getting full coverage around that edge. The headlights are too hard to get in there. I didn't want to paint them separately, risk chipping them. But everything else except the hood is primed. Got to work on the rear bumper, and of course the door jambs. I still need to get those finished, but I've got to do a new plate. This area that I cut out, I need to sandblast up here, but I'm going to pour 15 all of this behind here because there's so much rust in here. If I start blasting all that out, I'll end up blowing a hole through it. But I've got a NOS panel here. Still got to get the rest of it off right there. That's actually part of this piece, but that will go in here, rivet in once I get everything cleaned up. And then I'll just seam seal it to the body, and I can spray the jams. I actually bought a set that came with a used one for the driver's side. Seller wouldn't split it up, so I just had to buy them both. But if I don't need the other one, I'll sell it, but I'll have it if I haven't need to take the other one off. But for the most part, front end is assembled, and I can start doing the body work on the bumper, and then I'll move on to the jams once I've got the filler on there while it's curing up. Quick update on the Vette. I'm getting close to having the jams done. Just got all the rest of the pieces out that were part of the fiberglass cap for the jam. This is all still wet, but that fits in here. I've got pour 15 in here. I've got 2 thick coats of that I brushed on it. So what I'll do is I'll come back and I'll sandblast these areas that are visible. All this is not going to be visible, just this back edge here. And it really wasn't that bad, so I can probably just sand this and let my seam sealer cover this up. But in this area, I've got to sandblast this, and I'll come back and I'll scuff a little bit of this pour 15 at the top and just shoot some epoxy over that before I put some body filler over these pits. And then this gets riveted on in 5 places. and then I'll have to just fill these seams at the bottom just to blend it into the rest of the jam here. And then up here it's got to be filled so the door seam, the door seal will touch an even surface there. There'll be a step. There'll be a step in this when this gets bolted down or riveted down. There'll be a step in that, and I have to fill that transition. I've got the front end fit together. I think I showed you all that with the lower air dam. We decided to do flat black. Technically it'll be a matte clear coat over black base coat. So I've got all the ends of it prepped, and it's drilled inside here to fit the car. I just hand sanded everything to get it smooth where there were some defects. There's some shipping damage here. I think I may have mentioned that. There was a crack. I've got that clamped flat. I've got panel bond curing on that. So I'll just have to scuff the rest of it. Put about 2 coats of primer on it, enough to give me something to sand, and that thing will be ready to go. I've got some filler on the bumper here. So I need to block out the top sections and also the sides. Whenever I cinched it down to the body, it kind of sucked it in 2 places here. So I need to block that out flat on either side. And then I'll have to just prime the bumper with it on the car. There's a big void here. There was gel coat. I just found this earlier before I put it on. But there was a gel coat just bridging this big air pocket. So they had not completely flattened the fiberglass into the gel coat there. So I had to chip it all out just to find the entire void. I'll have to fill that void in. It's not super deep, but I'd say it's probably a good millimeter. Primer will never fill that, so I had to fill that in. I think that's the last place that needs to be filled, and there's a couple holes I have to drill in it to bolt it into the lower valance panel, which is along here actually. It's going to be the front. So all this is pretty much fitted. I just got to do it one more time, make sure there's nothing else I have to adjust before I paint it all. But I'm trying to get the jams done. That way I can paint the jams, have the doors back on it permanently, and be able to paint the outside. So that's kind of the next step, is to get the jams done so I can get the doors back on it. Alright, got the door jamb ready to prime. I just need to mask the car off. I've got plastic on it that I've folded back, so I just need to take this and pull it back over the car. I got to fold the top down and get it out of the way. It'll go down in the trunk. So this is all seam sealed in here just to fill in the gap between the new quarter and the body. I'm going to be replacing this, so I'm just going to prime over it, leave it in the hole so I don't have to rewire this. One of the wires is already loose. I pulled it back through, but I'll actually have to run a rod through, pull the wiring through to the new switch later, but I'm just going to leave this for now. And I'll just prime around it and replace it later. I'm going to mask this off since it's riveted. This is the new cap. And all of this is scuffed. I just need to go over it with urethane high build primer, and then I'll come back and I'll sand that when I do the jams. Got the front lip that he added. Got it all fitted to the car. This is the place where it was broken in shipping. That panel bond behind it. So this is ready to prime too. So as soon as I get the car masked off here, I'll be ready to shoot it. black. This will get 2 more coats, and so will the jam. This piece is actually going to go flat black when I finally do the finish coats, but I've got it straight as I need to get it for that. It's not perfect, but of course no fiberglass really is. So it'll look pretty good with flat black on it. It'll be straight enough. Here's a quick shot before it's flashed off. You can see it's fairly straight. I just fixed a little bit of a shipping damage and some little pinholes and things here and there that were in it. I didn't really do a whole lot of work except for on these ends back here where they had to be shaved down and made to match the car. These corners were in pretty bad shape. Had to round those off and adjust that a little bit, but in flat black this will look just fine. Okay, I just sandblasted this passenger door. Gonna get it in epoxy. And I'll probably put a coat of sealer on it before I paint it, just to give me a little bit more build over any sand scratches that may show up. I've got this in 180, but on steel that's okay. I can paint over that. It's not as bad as if it was on paint. I've got a few places like under here where the sandblaster got it. I had this in here covered, but I must have missed this spot. I just need to brush on some epoxy or either just spray it on. I'm just gonna go around and get one good coat of epoxy on it. Let it sit for about 45 minutes and get a coat of sealer, and then I can go straight to the single stage red that I got for this thing. This door will be done on the inside. Got about an ounce left. I'm probably going to let it sit there and flash, and I'll put the rest of it on just so I don't waste it. It's not going to hurt to put a little extra on it. Sealer will be next. Okay, I've just got this masked off. I'm going to go ahead and do this jam so I can get the door back on it out of my way. And then I'll do the other side next. I'm just trying to get this door on off my stand so I can get the other one off and put it on the same stand that it was on. So once this is sprayed, I'll need to wait until probably the next day. Mount the door, and I've got new jam switches here and here, new door seals, new striker. I believe this door guide was okay. I'm going to reuse it, but the one on the other side I'm going to replace. And I'll just put all the new parts on here and get the door aligned, and then I'll rebuild the door and get all those parts in the door so they're out of storage and back in the car. I'm going to get this wiped up with wax and grease remover in just a few minutes. I've got a little bit of seam sealer right there at that gap, and a place here that I was filling in a little chip. And I think I put some out somewhere else too. Maybe not. Might be it. Oh, I did put some on the hinges. I just kind of sealed the hinges to the body a little bit better, right along the top, just keep the water out. Get this wiped down as soon as that seam sealer is cured. Needs about 5 or 10 more minutes. And I'm going to put a coat of sealer over this just to go over my cut throughs in here and any of these spots like this of bare metal along some of these rivets. That'll just give me a solid color to spray the red over. I won't have any bleed through. that'll get about 15 minutes. We'll go to the red single stage. Second coat will be just a little bit heavier. I was just trying to get coverage in all of the edges and inside the jam there. So one more coat and that'll be good. All right, this jam's finished. That's 2 coats of single stage urethane mixed up to the color code for the car. I'll put base coat clear coat on the outside. I'll let that sit till tomorrow and try to get the door on it.